The significance of the passage in Scripture known as the widow's mites. It will be proposed in this short video that the poor widow of the Gospel whom Jesus commended, in addition to offering more from her heart than all those who contributed to the treasury of the temple, actually did put in more in real terms than the many rich people who put in large sums. Her 2 tiny coins were worth more in value in real monetary terms than the coins offered by all the other pilgrims. And so Jesus' words are literally true when he declared, "Truly I tell you, this poor widow has contributed more than all those who are contributing to the treasury." The widow's mites, St. Mark's Gospel, chapter 12, verses 41 to 44. And Jesus sat down opposite the treasury and watched the multitude putting money into the treasury. Many rich people put in large sums, and a poor widow came and put in 2 copper coins, which make a penny. And he called his disciples to him and said to them, "Truly I say to you, this poor widow has put in more than all those who are contributing to the treasury, for they all contributed out of their abundance, but she out of her poverty has put in everything she had, her whole living." The widow's mites is a passage of Scripture that has inspired the lives of countless people since the dawn of Christianity. Yet, like so many of the great figures in the Gospels, she is not known by name. Her kind act that day in the temple makes her stand out with so many other faithful disciples of Christ in what might be called a holy anonymity, not known by name, but rather by the great mark which she has left on Christianity. This poor widow not only gave to Christ from her heart, as we are told she put in everything she had, but she also gave him her mind, for according to the details of the Gospel, she alone appears to have bypassed the money changers of the temple in obedience to Christ's actions in the temple on the day before, when he overturned the money changers' tables and poured out their coins. That she did not exchange her coinage with the money changers, but contributed directly to the treasury of the temple, an action noticed by Christ, is the subject matter of this short video. Before looking at the details in the Gospel which it is proposed substantiates that this was so, let us first make 3 brief introductory remarks. 1. According to the chronology found in the Gospels, this poor widow came into the temple on the day after Jesus cleansed the temple at the beginning of the final week of his life, which for Christians is often termed Holy Week. If, as we are told in the Gospels, Jesus entered Jerusalem on Palm Sunday and cleansed the temple on Holy Monday, then the widow made her contribution to the treasury of the temple on Holy Tuesday. It would be only 3 days later, when Jesus was crucified on Mount Calvary. You might wish to pause the button to see on the screen some other important events and dialogues that happened at this time. 2. Money as we know it today is entirely different from that in use in 1st century Judaism. Many points may be made or instances given to show these differences, but there is one in particular which should be mentioned as it has a direct bearing on the subject matter of this short video. This is the fact that money today is merely token in nature, whereas that used in the time of Christ was almost always that of real intrinsic value. If today we are buying a pair of shoes or a coat valued at €70, we might offer the shopkeeper 2 notes or pieces of paper, one written 50 and the other 20, and the exchange is complete. The notes are of token value as their nature is that of mere paper. This same transaction would have taken place in Jerusalem in the time of Jesus, with one fundamental difference, that the coins used to pay the shopkeeper were valued because of the silver, or with coins of greater value the gold, that was contained within them. What would have allowed this transaction to take place was the fact that one item of value, shoes or a coat, was exchanged for another, gold, silver, or copper, in the form of a coin. Token money would have been completely unacceptable, as it would have contained no real or intrinsic value, and if imposed upon any person, would have amounted to a form of theft. 3. Every year, typically at Passover time, every Jewish male over the age of 20 years made a payment of a half shekel towards the upkeep and maintenance of the temple. This mandatory payment was known as the annual half shekel tax. The Jewish pilgrim, upon entering the court of the Gentiles in the temple, would go to the money changers who had set up stalls there, so as to exchange his coins of real value, most probably the Tyrian coinage stipulated in the Talmud, or the Roman denarii or Greek staters in general currency at that time, for that coinage issued in the temple. This coinage of the money changers was merely that of token value, most probably, as suggested by several of the early church fathers, coins made of copper or brass. The pilgrim would then proceed to the treasury and deposit his offering of these coins, while the coins of real value remained behind on the money changers' tables. In effect, this was tantamount to theft from the treasury, and it is proposed was the main reason why Jesus, on the day before, accused the temple authorities of turning his Father's house into a den of robbers. This theft that Jesus condemned in the temple, and so obvious to all who heard him at that time, might not be immediately recognizable by members of God's house today, we who live in a world completely dominated by the use of token money. This point will be further developed in another video entitled "The Main Reason Why Jesus Cleansed the Temple in Jerusalem." Having made these three introductory points, let us return once again to the passage in St. Mark's Gospel. On the screen is now shown both the Revised Standard Version English translation and the original Greek text. Please use the pause button as required. 4 important points from the passage are noted. 1. The term money found in the first verse of the passage could be somewhat misleading for readers today. Money is the Revised Standard Version English translation of the Greek word kalkon in Mark 12, verse 41. Although it is true to say that kalkon is money, it is important to note that kalkon refers only to copper coins or copper money. It does not include silver or gold pieces. The coinage that these rich people were putting into the treasury is the coinage they had earlier received from the money changers by way of exchange. This coinage was merely that of copper money. The silver pieces that the Jewish pilgrims had brought into the temple as a contribution remained behind on the money changers' tables, while the copper coinage which they received in exchange from the money changers was deposited in the treasury. As the money remaining on the tables was not korban, that is, dedicated to God, it could subsequently be used at the discretion of the temple authorities. The significance of this theft from the treasury should not be overlooked, and it is proposed was the main reason for which on the day before Jesus cleansed the temple. 2. The poor widow put in, as the Gospel records, 2 lepta, the equivalent of a quadrantes. These 2 little coins were, according to numismatists, that is, those who study ancient coinage, 2 particular copper coins called perutas or peruti, coins of real but negligible value, minted during the Maccabean period when Simon Maccabeus was given permission by the Syrian authorities to mint Jewish copper coins. The quadrantes, in English called the quadrans, was the smallest Roman coin in circulation at that time. As the coins issued in exchange in the temple were most probably scaled against that of the Roman standard, the widow therefore could not have exchanged her coins with the money changers. For her 2 small coins, the 2 perutas, which she put in directly into the treasury, were the equivalent of the smallest coin which the money changers were offering in exchange in the temple. Although she could have exchanged her coins with them, she appears to have deliberately passed them by in obedience to Jesus' actions in the temple the day before. It is for this reason that St. Mark appears to have included what otherwise would have been an incidental and unnecessary detail when he wrote that this poor widow put in 2 lepta, the equivalent of a quadrans. 3. Jesus states, "This poor widow has contributed more than all those who are contributing to the treasury, for they all have contributed out of their abundance," in Greek ek tou perisouantos autois, but she, out of her poverty, has put in everything she had, her whole living. The phrase ek tou perisouantos autois is literally translated in one of 2 ways. The first option A, from the thing which is made plentiful to them, or B, from the person who is making plentiful to them. And so the English translation might better read, "For they all contributed from the coinage made plentiful to them," that is, the token coinage of the money changers. The 4th and final point does not relate directly to the passage itself, but simply notes how in the 2 Gospels where this event of the widow's offering is presented, that is in St. Mark's and St. Luke's Gospel, it is immediately followed by Jesus' prophecy concerning the forthcoming destruction of the temple and the city of Jerusalem. It is as if this poor widow and her actions stand out as a signal hope before the approaching doom. In another video entitled "The Main Reason Why Jesus Cleansed the Temple in Jerusalem," this prophecy of Jesus will be examined in some detail, where it will be suggested that several economic problems, including the Jewish debt crisis and the unauthorized minting of Jewish silver coins in 66 AD, were prominent factors that led to the Roman destruction of the temple and the city of Jerusalem in 66 to 70 AD. This debt crisis and minting of Jewish silver coins were made possible, it will be proposed, because of the introduction of token coinage into the temple and the installation of the money changers at their tables there. These innovations Jesus did not condone in his Father's house. What the poor widow did that day in her kindness and faithfulness, by bypassing the money changers and making her offering directly to the treasury, was a light that shone in the darkness. It was something that greatly pleased Jesus and which he significantly commended. Maybe we could do the same in our own time today.